Imagine spending years searching for an ancient tomb. You finally find the entrance. You break through the sealed doorway, step inside, and expect to find gold, weapons, jewelry, maybe the remains of a powerful king. Instead, you find something that makes you realize this wasn't simply a place where someone was buried. It was a place where people died. Sometimes, archaeologists have opened ancient tombs and discovered entire groups of people buried alongside a ruler. They've found sacrificed animals, murdered prisoners, children placed around royal graves, and even bodies that were deliberately preserved in disturbing ways. Ancient Egyptians buried millions of animals. Scythian tombs preserved bodies so perfectly that thousands of years later, their tattoos were still visible. These are some of the most disturbing things ever found inside ancient tombs. Number 1. The people buried with the king. In the ancient city of Ur, in modern-day Iraq, archaeologists uncovered one of the most extraordinary cemeteries ever discovered. The royal cemetery of Ur dates back roughly 4,500 years. At first, it seemed like an incredible archaeological treasure. There were gold ornaments, weapons, jewelry, musical instruments, and elaborate headdresses. But then archaeologists began examining the human remains. Some royal graves contained not one person, but dozens. One famous burial, known as the Great Death Pit, contained the remains of around 70 adults, along with animals. The bodies were arranged in an organized manner, rather than simply being thrown into a mass grave. That raised an incredibly disturbing question. Why were all of these people buried together? The original excavator, Leonard Woolley, believed they were attendants who had voluntarily died alongside their ruler. Some skulls were found with small cups nearby, leading to the idea that the attendants may have consumed poison. But later, research produced a much darker possibility. CT scans and analysis of the skulls suggested that at least some of the individuals had suffered violent blows to the head. One scientific interpretation proposed that the attendants may have been killed before being carefully arranged inside the tomb. In other words, these weren't simply servants who happened to die around the same time. They may have been deliberately sacrificed. When a powerful person died, their death could involve the deaths of many other people as well. And Ur wasn't the only place where the dead were accompanied by others. Number 2. The children buried beside a Maya king. Thousands of miles away, in the jungles of Guatemala, archaeologists uncovered another disturbing burial. This one belonged to the ancient Maya. Inside a royal tomb dating to around the 4th century AD, archaeologists found the remains of multiple children. 6 children were discovered in association with the burial, including infants. Nearby was an obsidian blade with a reddish residue that researchers suggested might have been blood. The arrangement was unusual. The children weren't simply buried in an ordinary cemetery. They were positioned around a royal burial. This led researchers to consider the possibility that some of the children had been sacrificed as part of the funeral ceremony. And the disturbing discoveries didn't stop there. In another Maya context, archaeologists discovered evidence of children being sacrificed at important ritual locations. More recently, DNA analysis of a mass burial near Chichen Itza revealed more than 100 children, most of them boys between roughly 3 and 6 years old. Some were brothers. Researchers even identified pairs of identical twins. The discovery was especially interesting because Maya mythology contains stories involving twin brothers and cycles of sacrifice and resurrection. To the people who carried out these rituals, these children weren't simply victims. Their deaths appear to have been connected to a larger religious worldview, and that's what makes these discoveries so unsettling. The tomb wasn't simply preserving the dead. It was preserving evidence of what people were willing to do in the name of their beliefs. Number 3. Millions of mummified animals. When most people imagine an Egyptian tomb, they picture a human mummy. But ancient Egypt had another type of burial that was on an almost industrial scale: animal mummies. At sites such as Saqqara, archaeologists discovered enormous underground catacombs filled with mummified animals. Cats, ibises, dogs, baboons, and other creatures. Some animal necropolises contained staggering numbers of remains, One cat cemetery discovered in Egypt was described as containing layer after layer of mummified cats. In some cases, animals were raised specifically to be used as religious offerings. And modern scientific technology has revealed some disturbing details. Scientists have used CT and X-ray imaging to look inside animal mummies without destroying them. One study examined an Egyptian cat mummy and discovered that it contained the remains of a kitten less than 5 months old. Its neck had been deliberately broken. Other animal mummies show evidence of injuries or poor living conditions before death. To the ancient Egyptians, these animals could have enormous religious significance. They were associated with gods and could be offered as votive gifts. At Saqqara, some animal catacombs are believed to have contained hundreds of thousands or even around 1 million mummified animal remains. These weren't random piles of dead animals. They were part of a massive religious system built around death. Number 4. The tomb of the Lord of Sipán. Now we travel to Peru. More than 1,500 years ago, the Moche civilization built elaborate tombs for their elite. And one of the most spectacular was the tomb of a ruler archaeologists call the Lord of Sipán. When archaeologists opened the tomb, they discovered an astonishing collection of treasures. Gold, silver, copper, turquoise, masks, jewelry. Hundreds of objects had been placed around the ruler. But then, archaeologists discovered the human remains surrounding him. The tomb contained the principal burial along with the remains of 9 other people. There were adult men, women, adolescents, and a child. There were also sacrificed llamas. And the evidence connected the burial to something even darker. The Moche were known for ritual sacrifice. Their artwork depicts prisoners being captured, restrained, and sacrificed during ceremonies. For years, archaeologists wondered whether these scenes represented mythology or actual events. The tombs at Sipán provided some of the strongest evidence that these rituals were connected to real people and real ceremonies. The individuals buried around the ruler weren't all necessarily sacrificed, but their presence demonstrates just how elaborate elite Moche burials could be. Number 5. The tomb that didn't contain a body. But perhaps the strangest tomb on this list is one where the body is almost completely gone. In England, at Sutton Hoo, archaeologists uncovered an enormous Anglo-Saxon ship burial dating to the early 7th century. Inside was a spectacular burial chamber. There were weapons, gold, silver bowls, coins, armor, jewelry, and objects from across Europe. There was just one problem. There was no body. For decades, researchers wondered whether the burial was actually an empty memorial, a cenotaph. But later, chemical analysis changed the story. The soil contained unusually high levels of phosphate around the area where the body would have been. That suggested that a human body had decomposed there. The acidic soil simply destroyed the physical remains. So the disturbing thing about Sutton Hoo isn't that archaeologists found a corpse. It's that they found the invisible evidence of one. The body was gone, but its chemical fingerprint remained. The grave was essentially telling archaeologists, someone was here. These tombs aren't just graves, they're messages. The people who built them knew they wouldn't be around forever, so they buried their beliefs underground. And thousands of years later, archaeologists opened those tombs and found those beliefs waiting for them. Sometimes the discoveries were beautiful, sometimes they were horrifying, and sometimes they were both at the same time. The ancient world wasn't nearly as distant from us as we like to think. They loved, they feared, they mourned, they fought, they believed. And when someone important died, they sometimes did things that are almost impossible for us to understand today. The most disturbing tombs aren't disturbing because they're filled with monsters. They're disturbing because they're filled with people. Real people. People who lived thousands of years ago, made choices, had families, followed beliefs, and eventually became evidence. Evidence of how far humans have always been willing to go when confronted with the mystery of death.
Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to leave a like, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and we will catch you in the next one.